Guys, what's up? Darcy here at 6 Strings 9 Lives, back for another ranking video. It was about a year ago I was kindly invited onto the channel Heavy Metallurgy to do a Savatage ranking video or stream with Marty and Alan. Great time. We did the old 3-hour version. Lots of laughs, couple drinks, going through each and every album, worst to first. But I thought, you know what? This is a ranking that I would love to have on my channel also, for a couple of reasons. This is one of my favorite bands that should have been bigger. We all have those in our little categories of, bands that we thought deserved more recognition. So I thought, you know what? We're going to give you the condensed version today. We're going to go through all 11 studio albums, worst to first, but we're also going to include a very important EP, almost more like a mini album. It's 6 songs. It's called Dungeons. The Dungeons Are Calling. And I feel, and even on that stream, we felt that it should have been included in their catalog. It's that important. But yeah, so I'm going to go through all these albums with you and give you my thoughts, name a few favorite tracks, some lineup changes. Well, honestly, with Savatage, there is a huge turning point, and that was in late 1993 when Chris Oliva was tragically killed, went head-on with a car accident with a drunk driver, killed instantly. And, the band's trajectory and everything just really, how could it not change? You were talking about one of my favorite guitar players of all time. Such an awesome guitar tone. I always describe it as a kind of an eerie tone. For me, there's really no one quite like him. And I love, well, you'll see in my ranking. The Chris stuff definitely reflects higher up in this ranking, but we're going to talk about each and every one of these albums. And if you're new to the band, maybe this would help you check out a few of the albums. I know with Savatage, there's a lot of folks out there that have, their top 1 or 2, and then they lose track. And, I can see why on some of these later albums. There's definitely, like I said, there was no helping a stylistic change and maybe a different direction. But all right, won't babble on any longer. Let's start off with my number 12. What is this one? 1997's The Wake of Magellan. Full concept album. Not one of my favorites, not one that I go to very often, to be honest with you. Always ticks me off that they changed their logo for this. They made it more like a storybook type of logo with the concept, The Wake of Magellan. This one is their 10th overall studio album, and they're as a 6-piece. So we have, actually, and John Oliva is in here, and we have Johnny Lee Middleton, Chris Caffrey, Al Petrelli, Jeff Plate on drums, and Zach Stevens on vocals. But my favorite 2 tracks on here are the 2 that John sings on, which are Another Way and Paragons of Innocence. But there is other great tracks on here sung by Zach Stevens, who, I'm just going to tell you, John has been my guy for Savatage. Nothing against Zach Stevens, because there is one really awesome album I'm going to tell you about with Zach on vocals shortly. But yeah, check out Blackjack Guillotine or Turn to Me, another good one to check out. But there is my number 12, because we're going to include the EP. So we do have a number 12, The Wake of Magellan, 1997. Coming in at number 11 is 1995's Dead Winter Dead. Love this album cover, very cool. And there is that classic Savatage logo that I was referring to that was missing from The Wake of Magellan. So 1995, this is really the first band effort album, along with Paul O'Neill. You might as well throw Paul O'Neill's name in here. May he rest in peace also. Paul O'Neill became a huge part of this band in 1997 with Hall of the Mountain King. And then the rest of the story with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which there's a direct connection to this album. and that is on the song Christmas Eve, Sarajevo 2024, one of the most played Christmas songs ever, I think. But anyways, this lineup, basically the same lineup as the Wake of Magellan, minus a picture of John, but John is also on this album too, on 2 songs. This one, again, they brought in, what was I going to tell you? Chris Caffrey became a full-time member on this album, but they also brought in Al Petrelli on guitars too. Of course, Jeff played, and you would know Jeff played from Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I think 2 or 3 Metal Church albums he was on as the drummer. Excuse me. And so highlights on this one, those 2 John songs that he sings on here, I Am and Doesn't Matter Anyway. Just, you know, like I said, John's my Savatage vocal guy for sure. But another couple tracks to check out, I would say Dead Winter Dead, the title track, and One Child. But there is my number 11, Dead Winter Dead, 1995. Okay, plugging along. 2001's Poets and Madman coming in at number 10. The last recorded, 2001. So we're 2023 already. So all these years later, no activity from Savatage. I don't know if it's over for them, but I think Trans-Siberian Orchestra is still going. Like, it's still a big draw. I've never seen that live. I don't own any of their albums. I probably wouldn't mind going to see it live. Maybe a thing that, you know, my wife even would enjoy. But you know, as far as owning any of the excuse me, Trans-Siberian Orchestra albums, I do not. There is this one and the 2 I just showed you. There is a shitload of piano on here, and that's partly the reason these are at the bottom. But as far as Savatage goes, I am a completist. I wanted to get all these reissues, but the Wake of Magellan and Dead Winter Dead, I don't go back to often. This one I go a little bit back. Sorry, I go back to it a little more often. John is back on vocals. This is, I think they're a 4-piece here. Yes, we can open this great gatefold up, and there's the band with Chris Caffrey and Jeff on drums, Johnny Lee Middleton on bass still, and John on vocals. Tracks to check out on this one, I would say Stay With Me a While, Commissar, and Morphine Child. 3 of my favorite tracks on this one, but just not one I go back to often. And the missing factor of these 3 albums I just showed you is Chris. And Chris is the key for me in this ranking for sure. Like I said, one of my favorite guitar players of all time. Coming in at number 9, and I've seen this one held a little bit, or up there in rankings, a little bit higher than me, because I know there's one album you're thinking about right now, but you're not even going to see it yet. But my number 9 is Handful of Rain. So this is 1994, almost 1 year after Chris's passing, and I would say it's just John and Paul O'Neill basically wrote the whole thing. They have Zach Stevens on vocals. Even at the time, Steve Wacholtz and Johnny Lee Middleton were not ready to rejoin the band, so they don't even play on this album. All the rhythm work is done by Paul and John. John also does the bass and the drums on here. And if you follow Savatage, you know that Alex Skolnick does most of the lead work on this album, and that is one of the high points of the album. But I would say for me, it's not an overall super strong album. There is some great songs, and I'll mention a couple of them. Taunting Cobras is nice, heavy song, nice start to that one. Handful of Rain, which was actually co-written by Chris before his passing. Great track. That is the title track. There actually is a video with these 4 guys in it. And like I said, some great lead work by Alex Skolnick. That was after he had left Testament, 94, so that would have been sometime after The Ritual came out, I guess. What else? Nothing Going On is another track that was co-written by Chris before his passing. And track 3, The Chance. I hadn't mentioned this yet, but besides piano on those last 3 that we talked about, there's also what's called a counterpoint vocal, or syncopated, where it's these layered vocals like la 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 la, and then another line on top of it with another line on top of it. For me, it really gets annoying. And actually, if you check out the song Chance, on the later half of that song, that's the starting point of that, and they carried it on to the next 3 albums. And I imagine a lot of it in a lot of that piano stuff that's on Trans-Siberian Orchestra too. But yeah, those vocals, those ones are just not something that I'm super fond of. But yeah, good tracks though. And check out Alone You Breathe, kind of a reflective song, tribute type of thing for Chris Oliva. But there's Handful of Rain, my number, what did we say, number 9? Number 8. Okay, so this is the one a lot of people have been waiting for. I actually did a response video a couple of years back, 10 terrible albums that weren't Saint Anger, and I featured this one on. And the word terrible for the video was kind of, a little bit extreme. It's basically what you were trying to tell people is, here's an album by a band that isn't as good as some of their other stuff, which in this case, Fight for the Rock isn't as good as what I'm going to show you next, but I still like this album. I got a little bit of a soft spot for it. Fight for the Rock, terrible album cover. Actually, it's the total shits, really, but maybe it's one of those album covers that it's so bad it's good type of thing. But this is a classic case of a label at the time, Atlantic Records, getting way too involved, pushing them in a more commercial, not that there's anything wrong with glam, but Savatage was not a glam band. They were more, you could lump them in with more of a US power metal type of band that got more progressive, and then, big changes on other albums like Gutter Ballet and Streets, things like that. But yeah, and 2 cover songs on here didn't help either, Wishing Well and Day After Day. But I still got like I said, I got a soft spot for some of these tracks. That is the title track, Fight for the Rock. Out on the Streets is a cover of their own song that was on Sirens, their debut album. This version is a little more glammed up, we'll say. But a couple other tracks I would say check out, The Edge of Midnight and Hide. A couple of highlights for me. This is the first album to feature Johnny Lee Middleton on bass, and had stayed with the band for years and years. But this one, this came out in, what year did this come out? Did I even write it down? 86. This one came out in 86, and we know if you're a fan, you know it came out in 87, which we'll talk about shortly. But yeah, there is my number, my number 8. Number 7, big changes for this one. John Oliva steps out of the band, brings in vocalist Zach Stevens for this album, Edge of Thorns. Love this album cover. It's a Gary Smith album cover. In the trees with the branches forming that face with the light and or outlining the face. Very cool. And I'm a logo guy. This is my favorite Savatage logo. There is, well, in the albums I'll show you today, there is 3, but this is the one you would know. But yeah, so they, John's still actively involved in the making and writing of the album. Excuse me. Still can't shake that, trying to shake that cold, but it's going away. But anyways, Paul O'Neill, John, very involved in this album. But I would say check out the track, Edge of Thorns, the title track. Love it. He Carves His Stone, Scraggy's Tomb, another good one. And then there is a couple instrumentals on here. I think Miles Away is one maybe. But check out the tracks, Conversation Piece or Damien. The highlight on this album for me, if you could just isolate Chris's guitar work on here, it's just next level stuff. Phenomenal. And you know, a great swan song for him. He's, you know, greatly missed. I always, once in a while, I'll think, what if he was still here? And I believe this band would have been bigger for sure. But there is my number 7. Number 6 is right where I'm gonna insert the EP, The Dungeons Are Calling, which is a metaphor for drug use or, you know, abuse of substances, things like that. We got this kind of homemade syringe that is inserted into the skull on this cover, which represents, you know, something bad going into you type of thing. But great EP, only 6 songs. This one has a bonus track, but we will just talk about the main 6 songs. I think even in today's standards, I think this is about 26 minutes. It's almost an album. I don't even know where the cutoff point to consider an album, from long play to mini album to EP, extended play. But go check out the tracks, the title track, The Dungeons Are Calling, by The Grace of the Witch. And probably my favorite track on here is called Visions. Oh, great heavy track. Love John's vocals on here, and of course Chris's guitar tone, and just his guitar work in general is always a shining point for this. From here on in, for sure. There is number 6, The Dungeons Are Calling, which was recorded at the same time their debut was recorded, so probably early part of 1983, but that was not released till 1985. Coming in at number 5 is their second overall album from 1985, Power of the Night. Little more polish, we'll say. A little more polish to this one. Not a super large amount of polish, but it was produced by Max Norman, which, if you're into any type of 80s metal, hard rock, you're going to know the name Max Norman. But by the way, one of my favorite album covers. I just love this fist coming through the glass, and this logo kind of looks like, you know, it's iced or whatever. But this would be my introduction album to Savatage, but not my first new release from them. Some great tracks. Power of the Night, the lead-off track, it starts off a little bit slow, but then it just goes into that great Chris Oliva guitar tone. Warriors, kind of a pump-up, raise your fist anthem. Washed Out, great track, kind of speedy. Fountain of Youth, another great track. And I'd say Skull Session, check that one out too. At the time, Johnny Lee Middleton was not in the band at this time. Their original bass player, Keith Collins, was replaced. And actually a lot of the bass, I wouldn't say, I don't know for sure, but Chris and John had to tune up some of the bass work on this before it was actually released. And then after that, on the next album, Johnny Lee Middleton came into the band to take over bass duties, which he's a phenomenal bass player. I'll throw out that Steve Doc Wackholtz is a phenomenal drummer. Those 4 core members of this band is my favorite lineup for sure. But yeah, so there is my number 5, Power of the Night. So glad to get these reissues. It's a camp when they started this campaign of releasing 2 at a time and 3-4 months apart. I was all over that. This company, by the way, which is yes, Ear Music. I'll show you there, right there. They are doing they've announced it, but it's been a long time since any activity on the Annihilator. The bulk of the Annihilator catalog, which I am really looking forward to. There's another one of those, I'm not going to say bands that should have been bigger, but as far as Annihilator goes, there's just albums in there that people are just missing the boat on. They just haven't checked them out. They only know Alice in Hell and Never Neverland, but there's some great albums after. But okay, back on track. Coming in at number 4, Sirens, with the original cover. If you can see it through here, there's a face in the background. of this ship passing, and their original logo of Savatage. And I'm going to explain a little bit about this in a second here, because there is a little story behind their name. Now, if you were totally new to Savatage and you just walked in the door and said, hey, can you describe Savatage's sound? I would say, okay, go check out the lead-off track to this album called Sirens and listen to that guitar tone and those shrieking, awesome vocals from John. That's Savatage. Yes, they morphed into other things over the years. Some natural progression, some because Chris had passed away. But I would say the strong point on this album for me is the A-side. Check out the second track, Holocaust. Great track. I believe John's vocals are just next level on that one. And track 4, Rage, which to me always reminds me of Judas Priest. You know the song Steeler off of British Steel? Yeah, kind of comparable to that. Like some Priest vibes on that one. But yeah, good album, good debut album, and one that if you're a Savatage fan, I'm sure you have it in your collection. All right, so that brings us on to number 3. And at the time, 1991, when this first came out, I'm not going to lie to you, I did say, what the fuck? What are these guys doing? Where are they going? But it grew on me. It is a full concept album called Streets, a rock opera. And I know I wouldn't say it divides Savatage fans, but it's either one of those that you really love and hold it way up here, or it does drop down the ladder for you. But for me, this is just a great concept story of the rise and fall of a rock star and all the things that go along with it. And yeah, check out the title track. Actually, I want to show you this first. This is Chris's white Charvel. He played Charvel guitars, and yeah, that's such an awesome photo or a painting. Check out the title track, Streets. And as lots of concept albums, there's little interludes and talking parts in here, but the whole story fits. Other tracks to check out, Jesus Saves, really good song. And Can You Hear Me Now, great track. But if you're only going to check out one track on this album, I encourage you to check out a song called Ghost in the Ruins. It absolutely shows you what Chris can do on guitar, and that tone, and John's vocals, and of course, and Johnny Lee Middleton and Steve on drums. This just a great concept album. Personally, I would put this would be a top, I don't know, top 10, maybe top 5 concept albums for me. 1991's Streets coming in at number 3, and coming in at number 2 is my second new release from Savatage that I picked up in 1989. I should have busted out my cassettes. I have the original cassette for this, but too late for that. But here is my number 2, Gutter Ballet. This one, I don't know, I kind of call this a 50-50 album. This isn't the introduction or the... Paul O'Neill got involved with Savatage on their previous, their 1987 album, which I'm going to show you next, because, I mean, you're not dumb. You know what's going on here. But Paul, excuse me, grab a quick drink. This is, to me, where Paul really put his stamp on the band, and that turning point of more arranged songs, some piano work in here, which was very tasteful on this album. But there is still some heavy, great stuff on here. Well, that's kind of cool. You got the Charvel neck, or probably the full guitar with a rat climbing up there. But yeah, Of Rage and War, great lead-off track. Heavy. Gutter Ballet is more when the piano comes in, stuff like that, when the crowds are gone. Silk and Steel, instrumental, and I think there is Oh, actually, Temptation Revelation is a little instrumental too, showcasing some great work from Chris. Act 2 or side 2, I'd call it, whatever. She's in Love, great track. Hounds is really one of the heavier tracks on here. And as repetitive of a course that Mentally Yours has, it is a killer track. It's the lyrics are the song is about not a nice person, put it that way. Douse the cat with gasoline and mentally yours, mentally yours. Yeah, great track, but been my number 2 forever, and it's probably not ever moving. So there it is, Gutter Ballet, 1989, and brings you, like I said, you know what's coming, and it actually does come quite often in people's Savatage rankings or favorite albums, or go as far as saying, you know what, people only know this album, which hopefully, you know, that, like I said, some of these ranking videos, and when I watch ranking videos too, they're just helpful. They just say, okay, you know, I'm going to check out that album. That guy's got it pretty high up. We'll check it out. Helps us discover new bands and stuff we haven't heard. But here we go. Number 1, Hall of the Mountain King. And this, I'm going to give you my guarantee, this will never change. This was my first newly released Savatage album. Absolutely love it. The title track, I remember seeing that corny video on Canada's Much Music back in the day. But there is not a weak moment on here. Love this back cover painting too. Like I said earlier, also this is my favorite lineup of this band. All just top-notch musicians. 24 Hours Ago starts off nice and heavy, just exactly like Gutter Ballet does with Of Rage and War. Legions, another great track. Strange Wings, which another great showcase for Chris's guitar work. And Hall of the Mountain King, I never get sick of hearing that track. White Witch, another one, and then this one wraps up with Devastation. I absolutely love when John comes in and says, "Total devastation." It's, I know my vocals aren't that good, but if you know this album, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. There's my number 1, and that is it for the Savatage ranking. I did not show you this. You know what, to wrap this up, anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. Wrap this up. Savatage, just prior to them releasing their debut album, they were known as Avatar, and they had to change their name because there was another band called by the same name, Avatar. So what they did is they put an S in front of this. They dropped the R and they put a GE, and there you go. You got Savatage, and the rest is history. A band that, yeah, I'm a little, and I make no bones about my love for Chris Oliva and that portion of this catalog, but yeah, there's still great songs to be found on all of these albums. Go check them out if you'd like. And like I said, hope you enjoyed that one. Until next time, stay heavy.